Here lately, I've been watching a lot of YouTube channels where other people are talking about what they're doing and why they're on YouTube. And I really had to stop and think, why am I on YouTube? I started my YouTube channel, I don't know, I think maybe 2 years ago. And I only started it really because my daughter and my kids have been telling me, Mom, you need to start a YouTube channel. You need to tell people, all of what you know. And it got me to thinking, well, I didn't want to die and not share the things that I do know, but I hadn't been on for a while. And then I started it because they wanted me to, but I also started because I was taking care of my husband who was very, very ill. And then he passed away October 31st, 2023. So in 2024, we would have been married 36 years. I'm now 66 years old and trying to figure out this online marketing thing is what I call it, because, with me, my age, we were always in a brick and mortar, a building where we did conferences and met with people personally. They would come to my office, and I've been coaching for over 30 years, and I've been in ministry longer than that. So it's this whole online thing is different for me, but I really had to come to grips with some things the other night. And I'm telling you, God has really been doing something with me, and I wanted to just get on here and share today where I am and what he's saying to me, and just talk about what I feel like God is doing for all of us as Christians going forward. So I guess I should say hi. My name is Kina Renee, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Like I said, this is just new for me, but it's a fun and wonderful experience. But there's been some things that have been on my heart. And one of the major things for me is that with all my experience that I've had, I do want to share, and sharing online is different. So stay with me. I'm really making a point here. I've seen so many Christians, because I've been in ministry for a long time, been in the church. My husband, when we married years ago, I started out as an assistant to him. He was a youth pastor. And I grew up in the church, but I've seen for years people limiting God. And I think it's probably one of the biggest mistakes that we make as Christians, because the things that we expect from God, the things that we really want him to do for us, and they might require a measure of faith, but some things we don't even ask for. Some things we just believe that they're not for us. And if you really read the scriptures, when we become Christians, we have an inheritance, and it's not just salvation or going to heaven and waiting to get to heaven to get the things that we need. The Lord, it's like on earth as it is in heaven. And all the promises that he has given us for when we die and we go to be with the Lord in heaven. Can you imagine that he actually put us on earth where we wouldn't be able to experience some of the wonderful things down here as well? I mean, I think that as Christians, we are so limited in our thinking that's just one of the areas where the Lord uses me. I mean, I really feel that I'm called to equip the saints. And when I say equip, I mean, yes, equip with the word of God. But I think it's also more so with the areas that we're missing and that we're really not teaching in church. I think we've come around now more so. But I mean, with me being 66, I've seen over the last 30 some odd years, we preach about healing in the church. We preach on marital relationships, and we do preach on finances, but the level of financial information that I've received in the last 30 some years has been mostly being a good steward of our money. And these are all very good points, don't get me wrong, but being a good steward of our money and not having debt, and giving, of course, giving to ministries or churches or people, just being charitable, being loving and kind. And of course, some churches, are really big on teaching about healing, but a lot of them, I don't think that they really take it to the full measure. I I have a place where I'm not satisfied with what I see being taught. And there's so much more. I mean, if we just even thought about, I mean, think about this. Joseph in the Bible was a dreamer. We all know the story. And if you're a Christian, you definitely know the story. He was a dreamer. And of course, I think he was a little ahead of his time. He shared his vision way too early. That's one thing that we need to learn. If God gives you a vision or a dream, keep it to yourself until he tells you it's time to share it. But he shared it way too early. And what it did, it just opened the door for the enemy to get in and use his family against him. And then they sold him off, to be a slave. Well, in that traumatic time of his life, when he was a slave, he went through all sorts of things that we would label as traumatic, or at least I would, where you're locked up in prison, and you're labeled as someone that went after the Pharaoh's wife. I mean, these certainly aren't positive things. But during that time, he stayed true to the Lord. But in the end, to make the story short, because if you're a Christian, I'm sure you're aware of it. But in the end, God raised him up, because that was the plan all along. I mean, so when Joseph saw his brothers bowing down before him, the Lord gave him a vision into the future. It wasn't his present time. It was his future. And he hadn't got to that point yet, because he wasn't old enough, and he certainly wasn't ready for it. But the Lord knew it. It makes me think about in the scripture where the Bible talks about, I think it's in Proverbs, where, a man's heart will make plans, but God will establish those plans. And of course, God already has a plan also, but we do make our own plans. Well, think about when Joseph was finally released from prison because there was a famine and he interpreted the Pharaoh's dream. He was put in a position where he was in charge of everything. There was no one that had a greater say about anything that was going on other than the Pharaoh. He was like right under him, his right-hand man. So think about this. God elevated him to a position where he was in charge of everything. And not only that, when he started rationing a lot of the provisions that the people needed when the famine did take place, he even went into business where he actually had people coming in and they had to pay for some of the, wasn't a barter and trade. It's like if you don't have enough, then, if you don't have enough for your ration, or you need more than what is available to you or what's been rationed to you, then here, give me your cow, or give me something that you have as far as payment. So, I mean, these were business transactions, and he was making money basically because, he had to sell all that stuff back. Well, I mean, and you can read the whole story, but I'm really paraphrasing here. But my point that I'm making is that we don't teach that. Joseph was a dreamer. He was a man that God gave a vision to, and then he walked into that vision by way of a long path of trauma and hell on earth. But when he finally was elevated to that position, I mean, he had major wealth. He married an Egyptian and had two sons. So his life was just not the way that we look at things in the way that they should be. And let me just say that in all of my teaching and my coaching, people look at you and they wonder, how did you get where you are today? And how do you live like you live today? Well, let me just tell you, it wasn't always this way. I wasn't always making the money that I make and able to live the way that I live now. There was a time in my life where I had, when my husband and I had our children, we had 6 children, and they're adults now, of course, and I have 2 grandchildren. But during one time in our life, my husband had a 6-figure job. He was making great money. I was able to stay at home and home educate the children. And then during that time, I actually started my own business back in 2002. And as I was home educating our children, I opened up started a school, charged people to come in, and turned it into a business. And But before that time, my husband was downsized from his job, and we depleted everything pretty much that we had, in savings. And the kid, we had, I think, 4 children at the time. And I can remember a time where our washer broke and we were not able to purchase a washer at that time. We didn't want any more debt because we were trying to keep from digging a bigger hole with debt at the time. And I remember someone knocking on the door. We had gone weeks without a washer, and at that time, I was only using disposable diapers for our children whenever we traveled. Otherwise, I was using cloth diapers, which is the way that I was raised in our family of 14 with my mom and dad. So, and I loved using cloth diapers. And so when the washer broke, I mean, imagine, okay, you've got these diapers have to be washed. So we were taking, I think, like 16 loads of clothes to the laundry to wash and dry all the clothes at that time. And someone knocked on our door one day, and the gentleman said, we have a delivery for the Smalls. And so and I knew that I hadn't ordered anything, and neither had my husband, because we didn't want any extra debt. And so I said, I didn't order anything. And he said, well, we have a washer for you. And I remember my kids were looking out the window and the truck was out front. And he said, well, we have a delivery. It's a washer. And I was like, well, you have the wrong address. We did not order a washer. And he said, well, he repeated the address, repeated the name. And I said, well, who sent this? And he said, well, he couldn't disclose that because they wanted to remain anonymous. And I still to this day have no idea who sent it to us. But the point that I'm making is that sometimes what we need is right in front of us, and we don't recognize it. We think that we know and that we're doing the right thing, but we really don't recognize it. I mean, the answer to my prayer was right there, and I was turning it away. It was like, no, I didn't order this because I didn't do it. It was like, no, it can't be for me. And I think sometimes God is trying to do something for us, get us to another level, help us to recognize that He's got the answer for us, and then we just turn it away. We turn it away a lot of times because it's new to us. In my situation, I was just like, I didn't order it, so it can't be for me. You have to have made a mistake. But it's not always that way. Sometimes we just turn things away or blow things off because we're afraid. We're afraid to make change. We are afraid to do something different. And then surely God can't be wanting to bless me in this way. Or either we don't have the faith to step out. After my husband died in 2023, he died on October 31st in 2023. And the Lord had spoke to me before that and had told me that he was, I felt very strongly that he was going to make a change in my life. I didn't know exactly what it was or what it was going to look like or how it was going to play out. But eventually, when my husband passed away, we went through Thanksgiving with the family, and then we went through Christmas with the family. And in January, on January the 29th in 2024, so it's been a year now, he moved me to Las Vegas, to Nevada. I had never gone to Nevada. In all of my life, that was just never someplace that I had gone because I always thought that Nevada was a place where people, went to gamble, to party, and that just wasn't my thing. At least at that season of my life, it wasn't my thing. But I had never gone ever in my life. A lot of friends had gone prior to, but it just wasn't my thing. Wasn't into gambling. I was probably more into buying clothes and shoes and things like that. But the Lord brought me to Nevada, and a lot of people still ask me as I'm still coaching and, trying to get out here and do things more online and learn this whole new system. But people ask me, how in the world did you just up and leave? How did you pack up your house and move to Nevada by yourself, with the exception of one of my sons. He drove out with me, and they're like, "How did you just do that?" I mean, most people, my age, that's a hard thing to do because we're so settled. And even some young people that I've worked with have asked that same question: How did you just get up and go? And my answer to that is, you just get up and go. I mean, if God is telling you something to do and you feel in your heart that it's for you to do, and if He's telling you that you need to do it for sure, and not like, oh, you should. He told me that this is what I was going to do. So for me not to do it, I would be disobeying. And so I did. And it has been one of the greatest transitions in my life. And I've had several. Trust me, when you, transition from your youth to getting married in your, early 30s, and then you have 6 children. And then I had one of my children at home. We lived on a farm. We had animals. I home educated. I've been coaching, like I said, for over 30 years, working in the church. I mean, there's a lot of transitions in there. There's a lot of movement, a lot of stuff going on. I didn't just arrive where I am right now. I've gone through some things, which is one of the things that I love about sharing and coaching, because when you've had experiences and you're in your 60s and I'm 66, there's something that you have that you can share. And for me, I looked at being online, and I really, like I said early on, I had to really stop and think, why are you online? First, I'm online because I feel like this is where God would have me at this season in my life. But everybody's talking about, you should have a brand, you should have a niche. I don't know much about that. I just know how to be me. But I thought about that the other night, and I was thinking, in all of what I've done and all of the transitions that I've had and all of the things that God has required me to do, what would be my brand? That was something I had to really ask myself. What is your brand? And you know what I came up with? Jesus is my brand. I share God. I share Jesus. I share not just the love of the Lord, but how to transition, how to walk in faith, how to believe God for the impossible, how to allow Him to move you from one level to the next. And when God says, I want you to pivot, and I want to redirect you into something different, sometimes that can be a scary place. And sometimes you need somebody to walk you through that. Sometimes you need someone to show you how to do that. And especially when it comes to the Lord saying, I would like to move you from your financial state to another state. I feel like when it comes to our money, it's hard for people to just step out and say, I want to trust God. I want the Lord to bless me financially. I want to leave my job. I want to stay home with my children. I'd love to home educate, but I don't have enough money. I don't know how to do it. I would love to buy some land and go off grid or whatever your dream might be. I would love to buy some real estate, or I would just love to become a coach. But then fear sets in, and you're like, I don't know how to do it. What do I do? Is there someone that can show me how? Is there someone that can walk alongside of me? And what does the Lord's word say about that? And I'm reminded of something that I'm going to share with you that I'm doing right now. Back in 2016, I gave a word at a church, and it was on Mother's Day, and it's actually on Facebook, this message, but it was a message where the Lord gave me the title of the program that I offer now, and it's called Launch Out. But that title and the training came from when Jesus approached Simon Peter, and he was out fishing, and he didn't get a catch. And back then, if you're a fisherman and you don't come home with any fish, that means that you're not eating. You're not going to be able to sell any. So that means that you can't pay your bills, whatever those bills were for back in the day. You're not able to live like you're used to living. So that's like not getting a paycheck today. And when I gave that message, the Lord told Simon Peter, he said, listen, things didn't work out well for you. You guys went out and you weren't able to get a catch, but I'm telling you to go back out. And, Simon Peter was like, we've already done that basically, but because you're telling us to, we'll do it. And then he went out and he caught so many fish that he had to share his fish with the other guys that, he typically goes out with, which was an abundance more for not just him. He was able to share, with those in the community that he worked with. And then he basically felt like he was a sinful man because he really didn't believe in the beginning, because he said that. He said, well, we've already done this. You're telling us to go out, but we've already done this. I've already washed my nets. I really don't want to go back out, but I'll do it because you say so. So he obeyed, but he didn't have the faith to believe. He just obeyed. And Jesus just loved him. He already knew who he was. He loved him. And he said, but you know what? Yes, I showed you this. You needed to see this. You needed to see me work a miracle for you. But now I want you to come and I want you to go and I want you to be fishers of men. I want you to go and share what you know about me. And so, he became one of his disciples, and he was able to, walk this walk with him for the years that he was here on earth. And he began to see all of these things that Jesus did, whether it was, working with demoniacs or, seeing him in the storm and telling the storm to cease. Just so many miracles that he did that he was actually able to walk through and see that. But my point being is that there are times in our lives when the Lord will call us out. He will say, listen, I need you to pivot and let me redirect you, because that's what he did for him. He showed him a miracle, but then he said, I need you to leave that. And now I want you to come. I'm going to redirect you and you're going to go in this direction. And there are times in our lives when the Lord is calling us to do that. He's calling us to, just like with me, he said, you've been in the Midwest all these years, 30-something years you've lived in the Midwest, and now I'm calling you into a new place. You're going into a whole new season of your life, and you're going to do something completely different, yet the same. You're going to use that same skill set, but you're going to operate differently. And basically, don't be afraid. Just walk this out with me. I'm going to do something completely different. And he has elevated me beyond measure. And so I am offering the same program that the Lord gave me, the Launch Out program. It's a program where you will receive Bible certification, coaching certification, and you'll be able to operate, start your own business if you want, work in ministry, whatever it is that you feel like you're called to do. I know that I'm speaking to someone, because the Lord wouldn't have me get on here and share all this if I wasn't. There's someone that I'm speaking to right now, and you know who you are. And all I can say to you is just don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. If God is calling you to this, then go ahead and get in touch with me, and let's walk this out together. The Launch Out program, it's a wonderful program where it will set you up where you can move forward and do some things. And maybe God is calling you to stay home with your children. Maybe you want to have a little more time with your family. Maybe you just want to have something that you do on the side, or maybe you just want to learn more about the Bible. Maybe you want to start a business, be a coach. Perhaps you want to do this in your church, in your ministry. Maybe you're a pastor and you want to learn all of this so you can take it back to your congregation. I don't know why God is calling you to this moment. I just know that he is. And so if I'm speaking directly to you and you're hearing this in your heart and you know that God is calling you to something different, then please don't wait. Don't wait. Go ahead and get in touch with me, and let's walk this out together. Let's launch out together. You can be a part of our community where there are other women, and you can meet new friends, and you can certainly learn how to elevate your finances. I mean, that's one of the goals, isn't it? We work very hard. We want to work and we want to retire. But then you know what? When you're working for someone else, it can happen to you just like it happened to my husband, where he was downsized from his job. And we went through almost all of our savings we went through. And we had children at the time. And we had nothing really to fall back on other than the Lord. And that was truly a walk of faith. But don't wait till that happens to you. Get yourself set up now. I mean, this is for women. It's for Christian women. And God is wanting to do something. So don't wait. Go ahead and connect with me. My information will be down below. My name is Kina Renee. You can find me on Instagram. Yes, I'm learning how to do that too. I started my Instagram not very long time ago, maybe a few months back. So you can find me there. You can find me on Facebook as Kina Renee. And as I've transitioned and I'm doing something different, come on with me and let's do this together and get your coaching certification so that you can step out and start making some money and get yourself set up and certainly get your Bible information that you need. So I look forward to hearing from you, and I pray God would bless you. Don't be afraid. Let's connect.